me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine. I say you look so fine that I really want to make you mine. 4, 5, 6, come on and get your kicks. Now you don't need the money when you look like that, do you, honey?
It has been a minute since I picked up a phone that I was genuinely excited to try, and of all of the flagships that it could have been, the Samsungs, the Googles, the Apples, it is the OnePlus 13 that has actually done it. And yes, for me, right now, this is better than the S24 Ultra. And I've been using this phone daily since November of last year. It's actually been quite hard to hide this from you at times. I'm sure it's either been in the background of some of my other videos. I've also had to block it out of quite a few gym selfies, but it is out now and I finally have the all clear to give you my thoughts on what has surprisingly turned out to be one of the best phones I've used in a very long time, and one that has seriously impressed me. Now, it does have the new Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, and overall just some really, really great specs. But it is not perfect, no phone ever is, but it is pretty damn good. So let's start off with the specs for the OnePlus 13. There's of course the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip, which was announced at the Snapdragon Summit last year. And that boasted 45% improvements in speed, 45% improvements in efficiency, some big upgrades to the AI capabilities as well. Now, alongside the chip, there's options of 256 gig or 512 gig of storage with either 12 gig or 16 gig of RAM. Now, in terms of cameras here, there is a 5th generation Hasselblad set of cameras with triple rear 50 megapixel cameras, both IP68 and IP69 protection. There is a 6,000 milliamp hour next gen battery with very fast charging. There's a 6.8 inch Quad HD 120 Hz 4.1 LTPO at 510 pixels per inch with a peak brightness of 4,500 nits. Now, all of this is running Oxygen OS 15 with OnePlus AI, and it comes in 3 colors. You've got Midnight Ocean, which is a vegan leather, Arctic Dawn, which is a glass finish, and then the Black Eclipse, which I've got here, which has this like rosewood grain finish to it. And then there's also the OnePlus staple that is the physical toggle switch that goes between mute, vibrate, and loud, along with 4 years of software updates and an additional 6 years of security updates. So yeah, as far as specs goes, this has pretty much everything. It's powerful, it's efficient, great cameras, great support. But let's get into the first thing that I noticed when I started using the OnePlus 13, and that is that it is so thin and sleek and not in any way like shape or size bulky. Even with a case on, which is how I've been using this for the past couple of months or so, I just find this phone feels much slimmer than really all the other phones I've used, especially if you go for the Pro Maxes or Ultras or XL sizes. So the phone itself weighs just 210 grams and at 8.5 millimeters thin. You'd think it's probably just gonna like slip out of your hand or something, but no, the phone is grippy even without a case, and the few times that I have dropped this, it's such a light phone that when it does fall to the ground, that that lack of weight means that it's not this big, heavy, delicate object that's then smashing against the ground. And with the round edges, it is just really comfortable to use this for extended periods of time. There's no like sharp edges leaving marks in the palm of your hand like other phones I've been using. So that is what I noticed first. Now the display is a Quad HD 120 Hz Pro XDR display, and it gets really bright. You've got 1600 nits in high brightness mode and up to 4,500 peak nit brightness, which for me, even when in Dubai recently, zero issues at all when taking a lot of photos and videos. And also, I didn't even suffer any issues that I've had on other phones where after a few minutes, the phone gets like too warm and then dims the display, which then means you then can't see what you're taking a photo of. So yeah, no issues whatsoever with that. There is an under-display ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. Again, no issues there. Works perfect every time. And OnePlus have worked their magic on this kind of fingerprint sensor too, because it also mostly works even when your fingers are wet. There's also this new Aqua touch feature, which they say is meant to help respond to touches even when the phone screen is wet and covered in water. Now, in my testing, I'd say it's definitely better than other phones. When in the hot tub, I ended up doing like doom scrolling and just scrolling through like TikTok or Instagram Reels. And it does a pretty good job at that whilst the screen is wet. And there's also IP69 protection, which is the first I've seen in a phone ever. And this protects your phone from high pressure, high temperature liquid for up to 30 seconds, I believe it is, which means it should be okay to bring into a hot tub. You know, if you accidentally drop it, then 30 seconds to, you know, find it and pull it out. Assuming, of course, the jet's then pointed directly towards the phone. But again, these tests are usually with pure water. So nothing like swimming pool, hot tub, nothing with chemicals in it or anything like that. So it's not recommended, but I kind of like to put these phones through their paces because that's what I'm here to do. Now, I was even stupid enough to put the new Huawei Mate X6 foldable phone in the sand right next to the OnePlus 13 in Dubai. And the OnePlus was fine. Like, there's no issues whatsoever, even though the desert sand was really, really fine. But the Huawei Mate X6 was just really crunchy for the rest of my trip, which was then really awkward because then they asked for the phone back because they were like, sorry, that's one of our head office phones. So I had to give it back. But they gave me a new one, which was good because it's not crunchy anymore. Anyway, let's talk Snapdragon 8 Elite. Because at the Snapdragon Summit in Hawaii, I saw all sorts of, really impressive features. 45% improved performance and efficiency, improvements in AI speed. And the first thing I did with this phone was what I do with, all of my phones, and that's going into developer options and reducing the animation speeds to 0.5x from 1x. Honestly, just doing that alone makes most Android phones feel literally like twice as fast as they did before. And this phone just feels rapid when using it. Like, actually, when OnePlus showed us their presentation about this phone and all of its new features, they literally did the thing that I see others do because it gets loads of views because it's stupid. Where you do this and keep swiping between apps. Yeah, it looks cool and makes your phone look like it's fast, but really, nobody uses their phone like that. But anyway, with that aside, I'm not one to do benchmarks or anything like this, but this phone hasn't skipped a beat at all. Apps open nearly immediately. You're basically just waiting for the network to load the data rather than the phone being slow. And it's just been flawless in my experience. Now, a quick shout out here to 1Password for sponsoring this video. 1Password has also made this whole process just so much easier, switching between iPhone and Android and Mac and Windows. Now, I know you can use built-in password managers like Samsung Knox and Apple Keychain and Google Chrome passwords. But if you use one of those to store everything, then the moment you pick up a different device, it just becomes impossible to seamlessly store and share your passwords. We even store and share other information like our passports between me and my team here, so that when we need to book flights, we can just copy and paste all of that data without having to keep asking each other for, what's your passport number and your expiry date and all those kind of things. And so, as a long-time sponsor of the channel, there is a link down below where you can either get the personal or a family subscription of 1Password for the lowest possible price. And genuinely, as a happy user of 1Password for a decade, they are always an easy recommendation to make to anyone. Now, there are one or two Oxygen OS related issues that I'm not a fan of, which I'll get to in a bit, but performance wise, it has been incredible. Battery life, also incredible. So you get a 6,000 milliamp hour battery, which uses this new silicon nanostack battery that basically gives you a much higher density battery in a much smaller size. And in my real day-to-day usage, again, like I say, battery life has been incredible. I'm getting to the end of a day with a ton of spare capacity left, and this phone is easily doing over 6 hours of screen on time a day, which is kind of nuts really, because that's spending a third of your time that you're awake on your phone. This phone also has great standby time. You can get a few days worth of just standby time with little to no use of this phone whatsoever. We're on day 3 right now and down to 40%. Of I've been purposely not using it the last few days just to again test this out before making this video. Compare that to an iPhone or an Apple iPad that drains its battery in literally one day if you don't use it. And that's with me using the phone in balanced power mode. There's also high performance mode, power saving mode, super power saving mode. But honestly, for this phone with these specs and the battery life that it has, you can easily keep this in, any of those modes and use it for more than a day. So I keep mine in balanced mode all of the time. And even if you run out of battery, 100 watts wired fast charging, which goes from 0 to 100% in 36 minutes. How insane is that? What world are we living in right now? And this is what I mean when I look at, the Samsungs and the Pixels and the Apples. The innovation just seems to have gone. Over here, brands are making foldable phones that are legit really, really thin. And then Samsung is stuck on the same design they had 3 years ago because, if it ain't broke and we're selling lots, then there's no need to fix it. So yeah, 100 watts wire charging, awesome. There is also 50 watt wireless charging when using their specific AirVook, I think it's called, wireless charger, which works well. But for me, if I want a fast charge, then I'm going to find a 100 watt wired charger. And anyway, if you are wanting to fast charge your phone, that is then, you know, the 50 watt wireless charger is probably then plugged into a power brick that's more like 100 watts. So you may as well plug it in and get more charge in less time, right? So just kind of makes sense to me. But again, that's just me. Fast wireless charging is also great. It would be nice actually if it became a thing that I could then, you know, update my car MagSafe charger to charge at 50 watts too. But there is, of course, the question of, does fast charging, you know, damage your phone over time? Does it damage your battery over long periods of time? Now, I don't know is the answer to that, but I have been driving electric cars for a long time, and I know many people who just use fast chargers to charge because they don't have home chargers, and their batteries are also, you know, still fine. So again, I don't know is the official answer from me. It looks like it's unlikely to cause you a problem unless you are someone who keeps your phone, you know, until it's dead, and is in, like, you know, for the 5 to 10 year lifespan that this does have software updates for. You know, if you are swapping out your phone every, you know, couple of years, 3 years or so on contract, it is much less of an issue. Of course, there's the whole waste and creating waste and disposal and recycling thing, but, you know, just calling it for what it is. Now, there are also features in here that help you reduce the wear and tear on your battery. You can enable smart charging, which will stop charging at 80% and then only charge that final 100% near to the time you're going to pick up the phone. Like, you know, when you're waking up in the morning, it's going to charge that last 20% just before you wake up. You can also set a permanent 80% charging limit too. So you do have some options there. Like if you do want to try and prolong the battery life as much as possible, then there are some settings to do that. Okay, let's get onto it now. Let's talk about the cameras. Now you've got a 50 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel ultra wide, and a 50 megapixel 3x telephoto, which uses this new OnePlus tri-prism lens to give you something that's equivalent to 73 millimeters or 3 times optical telephoto in a much smaller and lighter form that they've been able to squeeze into phones before. Now, there's also optical image stabilization and a coating that is meant to minimize glare and reflections. And basically, without getting into a lot of the technical detail, it takes really good photos and video, and in like plenty of different situations. And I'm not usually one to geek out over the details, but in the past few months, I've had people messaging me asking what phone I'm using to snap the photos I'm posting on like Instagram because they thought I was using a proper DSLR camera. And people never ask me because I take the suckiest photos most of the time. So that alone is already a sign to me there is something special going on here. And I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not really a camera guy, but this phone captures such good photos and video. It is crazy. And actually, thanks to Huawei, I went on a trip to Dubai recently to check out the new foldable phone. OnePlus actually did send me to Amsterdam, where we actually picked up these phones in November. So I've been able to test in all sorts of different situations, temperatures, lighting conditions, fast-moving objects, and it has been just stellar. I don't even know the last time I used the word stellar, but the OnePlus camera system, stellar. Like, sure, it doesn't land every photo, you know, it's not perfect, but it's absolutely nailed so many shots over the past few months, and the quality of them have been so good. Like in Dubai, I've got so many shots of sunsets, low light shots of this owl where it absolutely nailed the focus on the owl's eye. Now, I did say it's not perfect, and one thing I have noticed whilst using this phone is when switching between the ultra wide and the main camera when shooting video, there is some weird like color consistency issues. Which, when I was briefed on the OnePlus 13 features, color accuracy, like particularly with bright objects, was one they specifically called out as having spent a ton of time and a ton of effort into improving. But I noticed this at a Sleep Token gig in London as I was like zooming in and out. And I noticed the colors changing on the screen. Thankfully, it's even less noticeable on the actual footage, but on the screen, the red lights on stage were changing to more like orangey yellow as I switched lenses. And so I pulled out my iPhone, because lots of us tech reviewers carry like multiple phones so we can compare them. And the iPhone didn't have these issues, even though OnePlus specifically called this out as something they'd worked on and improved. But that's really been it. Like, that's all I can really nitpick at the OnePlus 13 camera system. So when shooting video, there is a ton of options as well. You've got 4K 30, 4K 60. You've also got 8K 30. But the one I found myself using most of the time was just 4K 30 or 60, and then sometimes enabling Ultra Steady, which knocks out the 8K mode and works on anything 4K 60 and below. But this feature alone has worked so well in a number of situations where things are bumpy or I'm walking and want to just smooth out the footage. And so yeah, overall, like I've said far too many times already, camera on this phone, I am incredibly impressed. Now, onto the software, Oxygen OS 15. Again, to me, no real issues at all. It's practically the same as Oppo's Color OS. You've got the global search now with the OnePlus AI because AI is in everything. You can also swipe down with 3 fingers to take a screenshot and then either extract information from the screenshot, maybe like a phone number or text or whatever it is, or you can get the screenshot to scroll down, which works in pretty much all the apps that I've needed to use it in so far. I think the only thing that's repeatedly annoyed me day to day, because I just like to swipe down and search for the app I want to use rather than having, icons everywhere. And to do that, I enable the search on swipe down gesture and then search for what I want to search for. But if I then tap on the icon for the app, it opens up this menu system instead of actually opening the app. Kind of annoying, but it's only a small thing, I know, but again, kind of annoying. Now, there is also Google Circle Search, which is making its way to all Android phones nowadays. Google Gemini, also, as you saw in a recent video, really, really good. You can multitask, but pretty much all of the apps that I used aren't supported with multitasking on the OnePlus 13, and I couldn't find a way to force them into multitasking like I've done on many of the other foldable phones. But I like some of the minor thoughts that have gone into part of Oxygen OS, like when swiping back, you get this really cool fluid animation, the pop-out sidebar, changing the volume as well, that has a nice animation. When you change the brightness, it actually switches back to the screen you are on so you can see what impact the brightness has. And even just really small things like being able to see the connection speed at the top. And just the whole Oxygen OS skin and theme, I really like personally. It's different to Pixel OS, it's different to One UI, but still great in its own way. There's also this other feature called Beacon Link that uses Bluetooth as a walkie-talkie. So when you have no phone signal, when you're hiking, so you can still talk to friends within Bluetooth range, which at that point you could just shout, I think. Now you also do get MagSafe as part of the official case, which means you can use any MagSafe accessories, chargers, wallets, all of the good stuff. Oh, and something else I noticed, which isn't that great, are the speakers. They're okay, but when you turn up the volume, they do get quite distorted depending on, the kind of music you're listening to. So with that said, I'm actually going to keep the OnePlus for now. I'm actually, today, literally going to sell. I've got 2 S24 Ultras. I'm going to sell both of them because I think I'm going to stick with the OnePlus. The camera on this thing is just insane. I love the images this thing can capture. Although I am really still tempted by a Pixel Fold. I just don't want to be spending that much money on a foldable phone just yet. And then, of course, we do have the S25 Ultra coming out soon, which will also probably have the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip inside. But like I said before, this year I think is going to be a pretty big year for phones. Samsung have a lot to catch up with. Super thin, foldable phones, 100-watt charging speeds with this new battery technology. These brands like, OnePlus and Huawei and Oppo and Honor and Vivo, they have massively overtaken Samsung in terms of hardware, and they are still starting to catch up in the software side of things. Soon enough, they'll be building out their own ecosystems as well, which many of them probably already have. And what if, Samsung then releases the S25 Ultra this year that looks identical to the S24 Ultra, with basically no changes but the Snapdragon 8 Elite chip inside, because that's basically what's been rumored. So yeah, 2025 is going to be a very good year. Maybe subscribe to the channel, and I'll leave you with some of my favorite shots and videos that I've captured using this phone.
Puppy, no. That's massive hard bar.